Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
Purses, sunglasses, other merchandise with brand names like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and Versace. They weren't the real thing. And now several people are facing charges in a big counterfeiting bust. Good to have you with us tonight at 6. Investigators heard the bogus items were being sold out of a local flea market.
So they went undercover and they went shopping. It's a case that spans Warren and Sterling Heights. 6 of the 7 people accused just appeared before a judge. Sean Lay is live with the emerging details. Hi, Sean.
Kimberly, not only did undercover officers come in here to make buys at County Line Trade Center, Warren police officers were working hand in hand with high-end brands like Louis Vuitton to identify some of the stuff being sold inside, like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Versace, Chanel, Coach, Armani, Ferragamo. All fakes, all illegal. One by one, 6 people appearing for video arraignments late today inside District Court in Warren. Each person charged with a felony and facing a possible 5 years in prison, including a mother and son, a husband and wife, senior citizens. The crime, the sale of counterfeit goods, namely fake Louis Vuitton bags, belts, sunglasses. They look like the real thing. The real products costing hundreds and thousands of dollars.
On June 24, 2022, undercover officers purchased a Louis Vuitton purse valued at $1,000, market value for $35 from Mason and co-defendant Basim Jabber.
Undercover Warren police officers say they made the buys of the fake stuff from the defendants here at the County Line Trade Center on DeQuinder in Warren. Investigators also serving a search warrant at this home of Mohammed Salam on Anna Street in Warren, making an eye-opening discovery saying the home was packed with high-end items, all counterfeit.
We executed a search warrant at his home, and one of the rooms was floor to ceiling counterfeit goods. Counterfeit shoes, counterfeit Yeezy shoes, Nikes, Timberlands, shirts, jackets, belts, hats. We spent roughly 2 hours gathering that evidence. We seized more than 2,000 items from that house.
A woman at that house telling us they knew the items were fake and selling counterfeit items is against the law. Back here live in Warren, so we got a bust here on the local level. Now look, the feds also make busts like these big time. It's the Department of Homeland Security, because they say not only does this hurt the brand, but lots of people don't know when the money goes back overseas where these items come from, that money could be used for child labor or human trafficking. That is not being alleged in this case. In fact, a son of the elderly couple we saw there in court says his parents are just trying to make a buck. We're live in Warren tonight. Sean Lay, Local 4, back to you.
Okay, Sean, thanks.
A Pontiac man is shot and killed outside his home, and police say his supervisor pulled the trigger. Happened Monday on Woodland Drive and Parkdale Avenue. Police say 25-year-old man got into a fight with his supervisor at work, which led to him driving a company truck home. His supervisor and other co-workers went to his house to get the truck, but another fight broke out, and police say the victim was shot several times. The suspect in the case was arrested and will be arraigned, we're told, tomorrow.
Well, none of this morning's surprise announcement by the Michigan Supreme Court involving the Flint water crisis. The court ruled a judge acting as a one-man grand jury had no power to issue indictments against former Governor Rick Snyder, former Health Director Nick Lyon, and 7 others. Rod Maloney joins us live with more on today's ruling and a big defeat for Attorney General Dana Nessel. Rod.
Yeah, Kimberly, you know, this entire case has had political ramifications front to back. And today's announcement was a stunner here in Flint. They're also upset about the civil settlement, which came up to about $600 million, but they say a third of that's going to end up with attorney's fees. They're frustrated, they're concerned, and they feel a major loss here. When the now infamous water switch came in 2014, making the Flint River the city's water supply unsafe, residents had no idea what the future held. 8 years later, resident Cynthia Haynes is overwhelmed.
Honest, I broke down and cried. I did. I broke down and cried because they really don't understand how serious this is.
She'd moved to Flint just before that water changeover, and her special needs son, Daniel, now 12 years old, ended up drinking a lot of that water, and she believes his life is forever changed for the worst. And for that,
no satisfaction, is very distasteful, disrespectful, and I'm hurt. This is wrong. You poison a black city, and nobody is held accountable?
I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed. Former Flint Mayor Karen Weaver is equally discouraged.
Are we surprised? No, because of the way things have gone. We have gotten slapped in the face and kicked in the behind since this whole thing started, and it continues to happen for this community.
The victims won't have their day in court.
Detroit area attorney Todd Flood was the original special prosecutor, fired from that criminal case.
That's the ugliness of this. That's the sad part. And anyone that's been involved in this, that's the sad part, you know? So that is unexplainable, and I'm still trying to process all of that mentally.
What Flood is talking about there is that he says that much of this case is too far down the tracks, that it can't meet the statute of limitations, and that will kill most of the case. The one part of the case he says that remains alive is the manslaughter case, but there is another issue with something called a taint team. Some communications between attorneys and the defendant clients got out. And so now that has to go on all over, which could be years and millions of dollars. He says at this point he believes the case is dead. Back to you.
Oh, so Rod, what is Dana Nessel's office saying about Flood's take on things?
Well, her office is saying just the opposite. They say that they can move forward with this case. They will move forward with this case, and they think they can get prosecutions. So it's up in the air right now as to who was right on all of this.
We'll see how it plays out. Rod, thanks.
Star witness of a surprise hearing of the House January 6th committee was an aide to the former Trump White House chief of staff. Cassidy Hutchinson today described how the Trump White House was warned January 6th could end in violence and the chaos surrounding the West Wing on those days.
I found Mr. Meadows in his office on the couch. He was scrolling through his phone. I remember leaning against the doorway and saying, I just had an interesting conversation with Rudy, Mark. Sounds like we're going to go to the Capitol. He didn't look up from his phone and said something to the effect of, there's a lot going on, Cass, but I don't know. Things might get real bad on January 6th.
Hutchinson also testified that President Trump defended the rioters who chanted for the hanging of Vice President Mike Pence. More hearings expected to take place in July.
In the wake of the recent Supreme Court decision and growing concern over a woman's reproductive rights, there's now an increased demand for morning after pills. Dr. Frank McGeorge is here to talk about why this is happening and how morning after pills are different from so-called abortion pills. Dr. McGeorge.
Yeah, Kim, so the morning after pill, whose most well-known trade name is Plan B, does not cause an abortion. It's actually intended as an emergency contraception for use immediately after unprotected intercourse. But there is still some confusion and even controversy over these pills.
Whether it's increased interest in preventing a pregnancy or confusion over what the morning after pill does, there has been an increase in sales, enough so that CVS and Rite Aid are limiting the number of over-the-counter morning after products an individual can purchase. Let's clear up any confusion between the over-the-counter morning after pill used to prevent a pregnancy and completely different prescription-only abortion medications. The morning after pill is a hormone, which is actually used at a lower dose in many common birth control pills. When the pill is taken immediately after unprotected intercourse, it reduces the chance of a woman becoming pregnant by about 87%. There are a few different ways that it works. First, it can prevent release of an egg from the ovary. Next, it can change the way an egg and sperm move through the fallopian tubes, decreasing the chance of fertilization. And finally, it changes the lining of the uterus so a fertilized egg cannot implant and develop. If a woman is already pregnant, the morning after pill will not have an effect. The abortion medication, primarily a combination of RU-486 and another medication, are fully approved by the FDA to induce an abortion in pregnancies 10 weeks or less. Unlike the morning after pill, this combination of medications will result in a termination of pregnancy.
Now, right now, some states that will restrict abortions also intend to restrict access to the medications that will induce an abortion. However, so far, no states have restricted access to the morning after pill, which again does not cause an abortion.
Okay, so you mentioned there's controversy over the morning after pill. What's the concern if the pill doesn't cause an abortion?
Yeah, so, one of the ways that it can prevent pregnancy that I mentioned is, in some cases, it blocks implantation of a fertilized egg in the uterus. In that case, because the egg is fertilized, There are people who interpret that as ending a pregnancy, although I would add that's not in line with the majority of definitions on the beginning of life. Nevertheless, that could actually be the grounds that some states may try to use to limit access to morning after pills.
Interesting. Okay. Dr. McGeorge, thank you.
We've just received the latest weekly update on COVID cases and related deaths in the state of Michigan. In the past week, the state recorded more than 14,000 new cases. The daily average of confirmed and probable cases above 2,000 right now. That is a slight increase from what we saw last week. State also reporting another 174 deaths linked to COVID-19. That number's more than doubled since last Tuesday's report. Meanwhile, the FDA's Vaccine Advisory Committee voted in favor of updating COVID boosters to include an Omicron component.